Hey guys, what's up? So in this video, I would like to show you some other material options that we can work with here in Enscape. It's important to notice that up to now, we've been basically working with the generic material. So if you take a look up here, where we have the type of the material, all these settings that we've been changing in the last videos, they are actually part of this kind of material. But if we click here, we can choose other options that might be suitable for other situations. So I would like to show you the other options so that we can understand when to choose each type of material. I would like to start by showing the foliage material. So I will click here, and you can see that with this type of material, the settings are actually very similar to the generic one. And of course, we can use this kind of material in any type of vegetation that we have in our scene, but we can also use it in translucent materials, such as curtains and some other kinds of fabric. So let's try out here in our scene, and actually I will return this material to the generic one because I'm working here with my armchair material, so I don't want to change this material here. And I'll try to find another object where I can try the foliage material. I can look around here my scene, and maybe I can try here with this plant that we have outside our balcony. So I can use my Alt key here and select this material. Okay, so now I can make changes to this material here in the Enscape material editor. And if we take a closer look here, we can see that this plant is looking a bit dull because the material is very solid. And basically, if I change the type to the foliage option, you can see now that the material looks much more interesting because this kind of material simulates the translucency effect. So now the light is hitting the surface, and aside from being reflected, it is also spreading along the object. So we have the impression that the object has its own light, and this is very common when we want to simulate translucency in materials. So basically, just by changing to foliage, we already have this translucency effect applied to our material, and our result is much more interesting. Okay, so now I can do the same procedure with this other plant that we have here. Once again, I will extract the material with my paint bucket tool, holding the Alt key. Okay, so now that it's selected, I can basically change the type to foliage. And we can also see that we have a nicer image because now we have the translucency effect going on. And if we had a stronger sun hitting this plant, we would even notice this effect in a much more clear way. And I would also like to try out this example with a curtain. So if we take a look at our tags tab here in the default tray. So here in tags, we have a hidden tag called curtain that I'll basically turn on. So I'll click here, and here we have a curtain. So just for the sake of demonstrating the material, so here I can once again select the material with the paint bucket tool here in our SketchUp model window. So now we have this material selected, and also here in the Enscape material editor. And basically here, if I change from generic to foliage, we have a much more interesting effect. So if we take a look, especially here in the front view, and change it back to the generic, we see that we didn't have any kind of translucency. But now, once we choose the foliage, we have a much more interesting effect. So we can apply this kind of material even to objects that aren't necessarily vegetation. Okay, so now I can turn this curtain off since I was just demonstrating the application of a foliage in a fabric material. So I'll go back here to the tags tab and I'll make it invisible again. And the next type of material that I would like to talk about is the grass material. And if we take a look at our scene, we have already this material applied here in this small garden in our balcony. And this happened because if we take a look at the name of the material, so I will click here with my paint bucket tool to select the material. It's called grass dark green. So we can see the name here, and also we can see the name here in the SketchUp model interface. And as we have already talked, whenever Enscape tracks specific keywords, it automatically generates certain kinds of material, and that's happening here because of the keyword grass. So we can see that here the type of material was changed automatically to grass. And of course, if we change to generic, once again, we can see that now we don't have the effect of the grass going on here. And if we once again choose the grass, we can see that is working again. So let's see how we can configure this grass, which is actually very easy comparing to other renderers. So here in our grass material, first of all, we can change the height. So I can increase the height of the grass and make it bigger or smaller. Let me change a little bit here the angle so that we can see in a better way. Okay. We can also tweak the height variation. So we'll have some parts of the grass higher than others, and this can be more natural. So we can also change this height variation if we like. I'll once again move it back to the original value. We can also here change the map. So the color of the grass is following here this map, and if we change the map, the overall color will change, and we will see this when we apply this effect to a carpet. And here underneath we can change the tint color, and this is actually a possibility to choose a color to overlay the color of the map. So if I choose, for example, red, we'll have a red hue overlaying this green map. So we can change other colors and see the effect. And if we wouldn't like to affect the map, we can basically leave it here as white, okay? And basically these are the most important parameters. We also have the possibility of using height map and reflections. But for now, these are the parameters that you should get to know. And we can use the grass material to other objects in our scene that are not necessarily grass material. So I will take a look here once again inside our living room. So I'll move my camera here and I'll turn around now. Okay. And here, if I explore once again the tags tab, we have a carpet which is hidden. So I will turn it on. Okay. And we can see it here. And you can notice that this carpet has a material with a certain texture, and I will select it now with the Alt key. Okay. And if we change the type of material to grass, as we did previously, we'll have the same effect, and this can actually work very well to simulate carpet. So now we'll have a kind of grass effect here, and since we had a map with certain colors, this grass material is working quite well as a carpet, and it's following the tones of the image. And of course here we can also change the height. Maybe we can decrease a little bit, and depending on the carpet we can also decrease the height variation or even increase it. So of course it depends on the kind of carpet that you are trying to simulate, and you can see that in a very fast way we can really achieve some very interesting results, either for simulating grass and also to simulate carpets and other kinds of objects. So since I'm not going to keep this carpet here, I'll basically turn it off and I will go on and explore other types of materials. So another interesting type of material that we have actually already explored is the self-illuminated material. So we normally use this kind of material to simulate the self-illumination of light sources or to objects that emit light, or at least they appear to be self-illuminated. So here in our scene we can actually try this out by using here in this TV. So we have basically a normal texture applied to the screen of this TV, and we can select it. So I will click here with the Alt key so that we can select the material, and we can see that of course this material doesn't look like it's self-illuminated because we have basically a simple texture projection. So here we can change the type to self-illuminated, And you can see that now it really seems to be a screen and not just a picture in the wall. And we can actually change the intensity. So if I increase this value here called luminance, we have an even more stronger light coming from the screen. And if we decrease it, the effect won't be so strong. Okay, so I will leave it here with a bigger value. And as we've discussed before, this self-illumination can even contribute with the global illumination. And if we would turn off all the lights here in our scene, we would notice this effect in a more clear way. But for now, I will just leave it as it is. So it's very important to remember that we can also use this self-illuminated material together with images. That was something that we didn't cover in the artificial lighting videos. Okay, so another very important material type is the water material. And to try it out here in our scene, I will explore our tags tab. And I will unhide this swimming pool tag. So I'll click here. And if we take now a look outside our scene, so I will zoom here in our SketchUp model, we have a simple swimming pool just to demonstrate the use of water. So as you can see here, we have the water object and we also have the swimming pool itself. So I will first select the water, clicking with the Alt key here. And now let's take a look at our render. Okay, I think this angle is fine. And if we basically change the type of this water object to water, we can see that right away we have a very interesting material being simulated, and that's the advantage of using Enscape. We get a very good result very fast. But of course we can change the appearance of this water, and the final result will actually be a combination of different settings. So here, as you can see, first of all, we can change the color of the water. So if we choose any other color, you can see that the hue of the water changes as well. So I'm gonna try here different tones and we get different results. I'll return to a blue tone. That was actually quite okay. But it's also important to notice that this color is also a result of the combination of other aspects of the image. So we have the material of the swimming pool and also the light itself. So if we change, for example, the material, and I will select this material here with my paint bucket tool. Okay, so I'll basically here explore the simple materials from SketchUp. Maybe here I can use a tile material. Let's take a look at the thumbnails. And I'll select, for example, this material here. And I'll apply it to our swimming pool. And basically by applying this material, we have already a different result. Because now we have the color of the water combined with this texture. And we get a different color now. It's also important to notice that if we change, for example, the light, so here we can explore our shadows tab and maybe we can try to find an angle for the sun where it actually casts less shadow in our swimming pool, and then we'll have a different result than we had before. So it's very important to check the position of the sun because it's also interfering here in our perception of the water. And now if we go back to the parameters of the water, so I will once again select the material of this surface and we explore its parameters, we can still change a little bit the look of this water. So for example here, we have the wind settings, which is actually a parameter that it's very important if we are working with animation. And then we have the effect of the wind. And if we click here, we can define the intensity of the wind basically by moving the slider. So if we increase this intensity and now we take a look at our swimming pool by orbiting, we can see that the wind is very intense. We can also change the direction angle. So now the wind is blowing in a different direction. So it's important to configure this for an animation. And if we don't click here in this override button, these settings are actually being controlled here in our visual settings. So if we explore the atmosphere, there is the global intensity here. Okay, and we can also change the wave height. So if we increase this value, we have more noise applied to the water and the amplitude is actually getting lower. And if we decrease this value, the waves now are more extensive and they actually become less noticeable. And we can also change the scale, and if we increase the height and the scale, then we get a very irregular water with a lot of waves. So you can play around with these two values. And the last parameter here is the caustics, which is a phenomenon that occurs when the light penetrates the water and it produces this kind of light spots all around the different surfaces that surrounds this water. And if we increase here this intensity, we can notice this phenomenon in a more clear way. And we can even notice better if we reduce here the texture. So if I select once again here the texture that we applied and maybe decrease the image fade, you can see now that the caustics is very strong. But when the texture appears, it masks this effect. So depending on the texture that it's applied, we are going to perceive this caustics in different ways. I'll return to the original value here. Okay, and we actually ended up with a very interesting water for the swimming pool that was a combination of its color together with the sunlight, the texture applied to the swimming pool, and also the water settings like the wave settings, the height, the scale, and we cannot forget that the reflections are also very important. So whenever we change our background, this will also interfere directly in the final appearance of the water. Okay, so I'll basically once again explore the tags tab and hide the swimming pool tag. Okay. And now I can click here in my existing scene. So I'll return to the original angle, and also the sun's position will be the same as before. And the last type of material that I would like to show you is the clear coat material, which is a kind of metallic material that is appropriate for using in cars or other metallic objects that have a very specific behavior. So for example, here we can try it in our armchair. So I will select the material that we had used before here. Okay. And let's check our rendering here. So I will zoom in. Okay, and we had already configured a very reflective material by decreasing the roughness, and we had also increased the metallic to see how it looked like. And if we change the type of material from generic to clear coat, you will see that now we have a more interesting material that actually tries to simulate a kind of car paint. So if we now reduce the roughness and increase the metallic value, we'll get a very strong metallic look. We can even increase the specular just to exaggerate. So this would be very useful to use as materials of cars or other surfaces that would need this kind of car paint or clear coat materials. So it's not the case here, and I will basically return to the generic material, and also I will decrease the metallic value and increase a little bit the roughness since I don't want a very reflective material. I guess that now it's fine. And in the next video, we'll take a look at the materials that we can use directly from the library, which are materials that are completely configured and we can use it right away.